And welcome back to A House from Trees, episode 12.5. Well, what I'm working on here is chamfering the edges of all the posts and the beams, and I'm using a little router with a chamfer bit. It's a detail I can work on the top of the bents here, but not the bottoms. I'll have to do the bottoms once they're up in the air. Then setting up a backing plate so there isn't too much blowout when I drill through the holes on the other side. And this is just the kind of the tweaking, the little tiny, just smidgens, tons and tons of tweaking to get these bents perfectly square and plumb. Lots of measurements before I drill and anchor. And I'm anchoring them with those white oak wood nails. Those 1 inch thick pegs that I made with help from Jeremy over there at Red House. And that's what this is all about, just lining everything up, taking diagonal measurements, making sure everything is super square and consistent, and measuring, and then once I drive these pegs, that's it, it's locked. And it's really sweet once they're pegged. Working in the rain, that's what it's all about. I was lucky to have my neighbor once again all week, these last 2 weeks, just kind of doing whatever needed to be done down at the house and running the backhoe while I got the squaring and tuned the tenons tuned up.
We got hammered with some heavy winds, incredibly heavy winds, 50-mile-an-hour gusts, 60-mile-an-hour gusts, tons and tons of rain, inches. But in good news, the road held up phenomenally. It's really exciting to see that culvert shedding water and transferring water from one side of the hill to the other. The road's rock solid, no runoff, no erosion. Big plus. So it pays to pay, I guess, for quality material.
So setting up these, I was moving all these bents and setting up all the bents, I ended up building this kind of staging, this little bit of scaffolding so I could push them out onto and take measurements, and there was a lot of tweaking. And when these 22-foot 8x8s, it made it worth taking the time to set up this janky staging that I did, but it worked. Getting the oak splines that the floor and roof is going to sit on, getting them tuned up, getting the edges beveled, getting them planed down to a little bit undersized for my mortises, my through mortises. I want there to be slop and some movement on the day that we put the frame up, so they just go in and everything just kind of sits together. So taking a lot of specific measurements. This was hours and hours and hours of tweaking these. As you can see, I've got about a horse-sized pile of chips there. It was pretty fun though. It was manufacturing, but getting them all precise and all lined up about the same was pretty nice, and it smelled good.
What do you want?
Probably 2 people over there, because one can lift on and one can put a block. This side's kind of doing its own thing. So if we have 2 lift, put and block, and then this is just taking out. It just wants to one
8x?
Yeah, one 8x on top, and
okay.
look at that.
What are we, timber framer?
Something.
Jesus. Let's just stand this thing up.
Okay, ready?
Yep.
All right.
Yep.
So we need Stonehenge here.
I know. Did we want to put the strap, like the boards on across this before?
No.
Okay.
Right now it's fine.
Okay, cool.
And that way we can put the ones underneath in the same place at the same time. So
These last 2 weeks have been an incredibly hard push to get all these bents dialed in, assembled, get all the little weird details tweaked and remembered and lined up and prepared. Just being ready and prepared for the day of the raising, with people coming, with a crane coming, fine-tuning all these last bits of planing. My friend Jeremy came over, put in a heroic weekend and of prepping and getting ready. We were working until the wee hours of the night. Tune in this Friday for the video of the frame going up. You won't want to miss it, I promise.